it was caught on tape by a TV station that happened to be set up behind the house. They played the tape to me, and we eventually arrested Delbert Africa. I knew when we arrested Delbert Africa that it would be manifestly unpopular. I knew 100% of the white population of the city would be against it, and half of the black population of the city would be against it. But I did it because it was my job to enforce the law. That was a clear violation of the law. If anybody was going to give the policeman mercy, the jury was going to do that, but I couldn't. It wasn't my job. And there was a poll taken, there was a mayoral election going on, poll taken earlier that year, a couple of weeks before the arrest, and I was at 81% favorability. And I knew I would take a hit in a couple of weeks after the arrest, which produced a march on the DA's office by 500 uniformed policemen. My popularity had dropped from 81 to 59%. But a year later, I got reelected with 81% of the vote. Because people want leaders who have the courage of their convictions. We are sadly becoming a nation of wusses. Not us, not the public, but our leaders who are afraid of their shadow. And the last thing I'll say is it's a needless fear. Will senior citizens get pissed off if we raise the age limit for Medicare? Well, first of all, we'd raise the age limit for Medicare for people who are like 40 now, and we'd raise it gradually each year. But secondly, if you went before a group of senior citizens and said, quick question on Social Security and Medicare. Social Security was passed in 1935, I think. What was the life expectancy of Americans in 1935? Anybody have a shot? 64. Medicare was passed by LBJ and the Congress in 65. What was the life expectancy? It had risen to 68. What's the life expectancy today? No, it's life expectancy, which counts birth deaths literally at birth, 79 and a half. And if you live to be 65, it's 85. No one ever contemplated Social Security or Medicare to cover 20, 25 years of life. In fact, there's a quote from FDR when Social Security passed saying this will ensure that Americans in their last 5 years of life will have financial security. Well, it made sense. So we have to raise the age limit. Anybody here think that's unreasonable? Senior citizens? Most senior citizens, if you talk to them and explain things, wouldn't think it's unreasonable. NRA members don't think it's unreasonable to have mandatory background checks. And most NRA members also don't think it's necessary to have a magazine that has more than 10 bullets in it. And believe me, the only reason Loeffner, the killer in Tucson, was stopped, I don't know if you recall, he shot 33 bullets and hit 19 people, missed with 14. He had to take that clip out, and he had to go into his pocket, take another clip, and try to reset it in the gun. While he was doing this, two guys tackled him because he didn't have the ability to shoot. In Aurora, that guy went into the movie theater in Aurora with a 100-bullet magazine. A 100-bullet magazine. He fired 70 shots in 60 seconds. 70 shots. Is there any reason? The NRA says, well, it wouldn't matter, they wouldn't stop killing us. I almost don't care. Is there any reason to allow citizens to have a magazine that will allow them to fire 70 shots in 60 seconds? Of course not. Come on. Gabby Gifford said it. Be bold, be courageous, stop being a nation of wusses. And the subtitle here is How America's Leaders Lost Their Guts to Make Us Great. Questions? Yes?
Why, I see this a lot with the Joe Scarborough show that you appear on a regular basis. Why is it that politicians seem to gain that courage, as you say, when they're about to retire or when they step away, and don't have it while they're in office?
It's fear of losing their job. You know, one of the things I think that made me a much better mayor and much better governor was that I lost 2 elections. I lost for governor in '86, primary to Bob Casey, mayor in '87, lost to Wilson Goode. Because I found out life went on. I could still go to the Palestra and watch basketball and have fun. I could still eat a steak. You know, life went on. It wasn't the end of the world. A lot of these people who've been in office forever are petrified, And when you get down to legislators, you know, everyone says, oh, those senators could be making so much more money on the outside, and in most cases that's true. For legislators, that's not necessarily true. If you're a rural legislator, and you're coming from a small town, $85,000 plus a per diem and a free car and gasoline, it's a $100,000 package. There are very few jobs where you live that are that good. Very few jobs. So they're petrified of losing their jobs. And that's the answer. And that's why I have reluctantly, and I say this, I've always been a believer in term limits for executives. But I've reluctantly become a believer that we ought to have term limits for legislators. It's hard to do. It's hard to point out any state that has term limits that's run effectively. But if you knew you had 8 years as a state legislator, and you were in year 5, guaranteed a 6th year, and there was a difficult bill, and you knew if you voted for it, you'd probably lose, or you might lose your job. Well, what's the difference between serving another 2 years or leaving at the end of the term? Very little difference. But most of these legislators, congressmen, senators, look upon it as a lifetime job. I've heard guys come up to me and say, you're absolutely right, but I can't vote for that. I've got to protect my pension. There it is. There it is. That's why we need leaders who've got courage.
What, if anything, did you lack the courage to do?
It's a good question. Most times I did, I'm proud to say I did do the courageous thing, and I did risk a lot of disapproval by the voters. But the one where I clearly wussed out was on the pay raise. The legislative leaders came to me in 2005 and demanded this pay raise. And not only was the pay raise, was it a pay raise, but it was a far too rich pay raise. I said no. I almost got into a fight. I almost got hit by one of the Senate leaders, but I said no, and there was no pay raise. In 2006, they came back to me, same pay raise, and said, you're going to win re-election, but if you don't sign this pay raise, we will not pass anything that you have any interest in for the next 4 years. Well, I should have known, so I thought to myself, well, it's a little extreme, but what the heck. I signed it, and I had a veto message saying that I thought it was too rich and that I wouldn't take the pay raise for governor, and I never did. But I should have had the sense and the courage to know that they were bluffing, that they couldn't do that there was no reason that they couldn't explain to the public why they were doing that, and I should have stared them down again as I did in '05. I didn't, and the great irony is I wasn't punished at all. I got reelected with 21% of the vote, but most of those legislative leaders were defeated in their own primaries. And a couple of them were pretty decent, and I would have liked to have kept them around. But I clearly was out there. There was any level of courage and intelligence would have convinced me to veto it again. And it would have been the best thing for them. Yes?
You may have just answered this, but how would you answer this question? What is the one thing that you wish you had done differently, either as mayor or governor?
Well, that's for sure. That for sure. Yeah, that too. But now, again, probably other than that, not much. I mean, I have in my office a editorial framed, and it was an editorial. When I left office as governor, a lot of papers did editorials where they evaluated. The Harrisburg Patriot, which is the closest thing we have to a paper of record in the state, did a very nice editorial, and essentially what the last paragraph said, in the end, he meant what he said, and he did what he said, and it's all we can ask of our public officials. And I believe I did that. If you track my campaign promises in '91 as mayor, my campaign promises in 2002 as governor, I believe that I made substantial progress in every one of those promises. Did I get 100% of the way there? No, because particularly in Harrisburg, I had to compromise to get where I wanted to go. But we made substantial progress in every one of them. I think the pay raise, and again, the pay raise didn't wind up hurting me, but it was bad. And it was another reason for people to hate government. Yes?
2 quick questions. If somebody wanted to join a group that was the antithesis of NRA, who would you recommend?
Well, I get involved with Operation Ceasefire. It's a 501c3, and it's the best anti-gun movement. If you want to give money to Gabby Gifford and her husband. Their group is raising a lot of money, but ceasefire.
Second question. And you know, keeping with the theme of your book and the fact that we're in the ethical society, what do you say to good, honest, independent people such as myself, Rendell, who's going to run for controller, I ran for city council, bloodbath of a race, where every dirty trick, every ward leader, every operative, every union was against me, and I came to 38 votes for council seat. What do you say to good, honest, independent people who give up a lot to run? And are we out of our minds?
No.
Because that was my conclusion at the end.